Hi, everyone. My name is Anita Ladhani. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, an energy practitioner, and a life coach. And I'm actually currently accepting clients. So if you're interested in having a personal coach, a life coach, a spiritual coach, please inbox me and we can discuss further. So today I want to talk about what will people say, right? Or in Hindi, LOG KYA KAHENGE, right? So if you are anywhere from India, Pakistan, you've heard this before. We've all grown up with this LOG KYA KAHENGE, the burden of what will people think? How can I do that? What will people think? What are you thinking of wearing that for? What will people say? And it just amazes me and cracks me up when I think about and I listen to this whole thing, even today, for simple things to very serious issues, when people actually go back and say, well, what will people think? LOG KYA KAHENGE. So let's talk about that. So I want to tell you a story about LOG KYA KAHENGE and how it has LOG KYA KAHENGE and how that has influenced and impacted my life forever, right? So, we are human beings. We live with other human beings. We interact with other human beings. If we're lucky, we belong to a congregation, to a community. If we're Smileys, or for Muslims, or for Hindus, we belong to a masjid or a Jamaat Khana or a mandir or church or whatever. We belong to a congregation, and when you worship together in a congregation, you get to know people and you meet people on a weekly basis, and then people start to get to know you, and you start to become like an extended family. And also then there's also those that gossip and want to know your business. So we very much become influenced by, what will people think and what will people say, blah, blah, blah. So let me tell you a story. This goes back 15 years, okay? I was married, my older one was about, how old was Ali? I think Ali was 5.5 years old. Zen was almost 2 years old. Yes, my ex and I were fighting a lot. And, we were arguing, we were fighting, we were not getting along. And somehow I must have confided in someone and it got out, right? So I remember going to some event, some picnic or whatever, and some mutual friend came up and said, oh yeah, I heard you're getting a divorce. And I was like, wait, what? I'm getting a divorce? I didn't know that. It was news to me. And that was so interesting because sure, it was months later before we actually decided we were getting a divorce. But for whatever reason, this person and the whole group of whoever was discussing had decided that we were getting a divorce before we had decided we were getting a divorce. And then I remember sitting with my, parents and talking about, the divorce and how I was afraid to get a divorce, and I was, the burden of, and so my dad sat me down. Very wise man. I love my parents. I love my family. Shukr, alhamdulillah. But I remember my dad sitting me down and, kept saying, what are you worried about? And I said, well, people will talk about me, Dad. And he says, well, who are these people that you're worried about? And I said, well, I don't know, just people, Dad. People in Jamaat Khana, people in the congregation, right? People at church. And he goes, okay, Anita, think about it for a minute and tell me specifically. He made me do this exercise when I closed my eyes. He says, close your eyes, and I want you to think about who comes to mind when you think about these so-called people talking about you. So I closed my eyes and I thought about it, and immediately two faces popped up. And so I told him who those two faces were. And he says, okay, is that it? Is there anyone else? And I said, no, actually, that's really it. For me, those two people, for whatever reason, represented, the whole congregation and what were they going to say? And it was kind of funny when I actually simplified it. They weren't even people that were my friends, or they weren't people that really, were anyone powerful or influential. They were just ordinary people that I was so concerned about them. Now, ironically, those same people have become some of my closest friends over the years. So did people talk about me after my divorce? Absolutely. Through my divorce? Absolutely. Did people talk about me over the years? Of course they did, because that's what people do. people will talk about other people. There are people who love to do just that. They sit and they discuss other people, right? So there's a quote: great minds discuss ideas, shallow minds discuss people, or something along those lines. And those that will sit and discuss people are not going to change. They're going to talk about me today, they'll talk about you tomorrow, the day after, they'll find another person. And why do you think that is? Well, that's because they have nothing interesting going on in their lives, right? So, or their lives are miserable. They have stuff going on in their lives that they're not happy about. And so it's easier to then sit and judge and point fingers and criticize other people, because that takes the attention away from their lives. This is fun and games until it's not, because I bring this up because it's been a consistent pattern that I'm seeing in many of the people that are reaching out to me. And it's getting to a point where I'm like, okay, maybe I should do a video about this. So here's one example. I had a young man reach out to me. Actually, it was several. There was a teenager, there was an older adult, there was men, women, it didn't matter. This is like a pattern. People who are suffering with mental illness, right? Who are seriously, life has kicked their asses, whether it's, they've lost their business, they've lost loved ones, they're divorced, whatever the case might be. Life's been rough, and they had a nervous breakdown, or they didn't, and they were hospitalized, or they weren't. I mean, it ranges. I'm trying to, so many people are coming to mind right now. But I'm saying this to you because the spectrum of that experience could be any one of those extremes, right? It could be someone that's just maybe had their heart broken, or someone who's literally lost everything in life, someone who's just depressed for a few weeks or a few months, someone who maybe was hospitalized because they were suicidal, because they were so depressed with everything that happened to them. And so the point is, this person, was depressed and were given medication. So here's, I'm going to switch gears a little bit. People are prescribed medications for serious depression, suicidal ideations, anxiety, what have you. And then they have friends in their life, I use the term friends quite leniently, that has said to them, oh, and of course all medications have some kind of side effects, right? It's an adjustment, it's a process. That's a whole different conversation that I've done a couple of talks on, about the whole, medication of mental illness and whatnot. But the point is, this person was having some side effects. The medication wasn't kicking in right away. And so a good friend of his, who was a nurse, told him, no, don't take the medication. You don't need it. You should just watch your diet and go meditate and go to Jamaat Khana, go pray every morning, or whatever the case might be. But don't take the medication. It's really strong and it's really horrible, and you should not take it. And he says to me that she's a nurse. So of course she knows better, because she's a nurse. And so I said, okay, how are you feeling now? How are you doing now? Well, I'm not doing so great. Well, I'm having a nervous breakdown. I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling suicidal. I wanna reach out. There's other triggers in my life. I want to reach out. Can I, are there any support groups? Are there any, could I go back and, do this again? And I said, you should go see a therapist. You should maybe join some support groups. Maybe go back and get evaluated for medication again. And he says, no, I can't do it, because if I do that, then people will talk and it will embarrass my parents, my family. And I said, are you kidding me? He goes, no, people are already coming up to my parents and saying and asking questions about my marriage, asking questions about my divorce. And I don't want my parents to be in an uncomfortable situation. So I'm not going to do that, because I don't want my parents to be mad at me. Now, these are grown people, right? Grown adults who are so concerned about being an embarrassment because other people are coming up and saying stuff to their parents that they don't want to reach out and get help. And I'm genuinely concerned. So I really encourage this person to, take some specific steps, to reach out, did a safety contract, what have you. Then I have other people reaching out to me, saying, well, I'm in a bad relationship. I'm in a situation, where I'm not happy. I'm being abused. I'm in a really abusive relationship, and my wife, who's really kind of moved on, won't give me a divorce or wants a divorce or whatever the case might be. But again, the situation comes down to, I don't want to do that because what will people say? So let's understand this, guys. Okay, it's fear based. Okay, and I understand that this has been ingrained in our upbringing, especially as brown Indians. But I think it doesn't matter. I think this is kind of ingrained in a lot of cultures, where if you belong to a community, I don't care what color you are, what religion you are, what race you are, if you belong to a community, there's some kind of accountability that builds into that relationship of being part of the community. And then you kind of are held to a standard of behavior. I think that's a good thing, because that's how people stay in line. But what troubles me about this is when it becomes a hindrance with this false sense of wanting to not disappoint people or not be the talk of, gossip. And that's where I think we really need to sort of reevaluate this. And I'll tell you, I've been guilty of gossiping, and I've really caught myself, and over the years made it a practice not to discuss people, period. I'll talk about my own stuff till the sun comes up. And my close friends know that. Okay, they know that if they want to come talk to me, that's why I have a very small group of people that I actually consider friends. I have a lot of associates, I have a lot of acquaintances, but a very small circle of friends, because I will not discuss people with them. Let's discuss ideas. Let's discuss, myself. Let's discuss what's going on in your life. Let's talk about important things. But I'm not interested in discussing what's going on in celebrating or discussing somebody else's misery. Let's pray for them. I mean, yes, information is one thing, but taking pride in that is another. So if you're someone who is gossiping, please stop. I mean, really, just stop. Catch yourself doing it and then make a conscious effort not to do it. Ask yourselves why you feel the need to gossip. I think that's a very important question. And like I said, it's usually because there's something missing in your life, or there's something not quite okay in your life that we are now projecting, distracting from the issue at hand to talk about other people so that no attention is, focused on us. That's one issue. If you are someone that is concerned about people talking about you, ask yourself the question that my dad asked me, right? Close your eyes and say, okay, who comes to mind when I think about, when I worry about people talking about me? Okay. Sometimes it might be a whole group of people. Sometimes it might be individuals. And then really evaluate how important is their opinion of you. Do they pay your bills? Do they put a roof over your head? If you were at their level, say financially, they were rich and you're not, or they belong to a certain class and you don't. If you were actually rich and at that level, are these people someone you would actually care to associate with? More than likely, if you're a good human being, you're not going to want to associate with garbage like that. So why are you worried about that? At the end of the day, live your own truth. Worry about your own self. Worry about your own immediate family. And do what's right for you and your family in the long run. Okay? With all due respect, fuck other people. Fuck their opinions. Fuck who cares what they think about you. Don't worry about that. Okay? Pray on it. Ignore them. There's many different things you can do. Journal. Make a list of what worries you. Let's put into black and white your fears, because that's all it is. It's your fears. And your fears tend to be this big monster unless you actually give it a concrete size and shape, right? Specify what it is that you're afraid of. And when you realize that your so-called big monstrous fear of whatever you thought it was is really not that big, it'll be easier for you to get the courage to move on. So I honestly, it's a huge blessing in my life that I'm at a point now where I really, and it's not that I don't slip into this every now and then, right? I have a need to belong just like anyone else. But I really have to sort of, I'm really grateful that, other people talk, what other people think of me is really none of my business. It's not. So I don't worry about it, I want real people in my life. I want meaningful friendships in my life. I want real conversation in my life. And if that's not going to happen, then I'm okay with them not being in my life. I'm okay with them, not crossing paths with me, because to me, authenticity and respect and trust is very, very, very important. And, so I hope this has been helpful. Please feel free to reach out to me. I need to do a video on EFT, which is tapping, emotional freedom technique, to help teach how we can actually get rid of these fears in a very real and quite easy way. Anyways, all the best, love and light. Take care. God bless.